Hi, so for my project, I did it on one of my students in my classroom. Um, a little bit about the student. The student is 15 years old. He has severe autism. He likes trains, bubbles, talking, bikes, swings, and many other things. One thing about this student is he likes a lot of different things, and he likes drawing and looking at books. I mean, anything you can think of, this student really enjoys. So for a career for the student, Goodwill's really a good option for any student with any disability. We had one of our most severe students at our building um, going to work at Goodwill. They provide supports for the students so that they're able to get the full experience of working, but they also have full supports of being in a school. Um, he's still young, so I think that once he gets a little bit older, we would reconsider what he likes, what his interests and hobbies are. So I think that's something I didn't really think about is like looking into how old the students are at the time, because you start doing these transition assessments at 14. But from 14 to 22, I know that in the past year my students have changed vastly. So I think that they'll continue to change um, in the years to come, and just looking at their interests and hobbies and doing the assessment that I did, which was the employability and life skills assessment. Just doing that every year. It has a slot for each age, but every year, just like keeping up on that, like what has he grown in, what has he made changes in, and then graphing that as a change as well in that document. But his parents want him to live at home with him, which I can respect that. However, the parents won't be around forever, so they said that they would like to transition him into a group home when he gets a little bit older. The highlights, I really enjoyed filling out the transition section of the IEP because at a charter school, we have district representatives that do that for us. I'm sorry, excuse me. And I thought it was really neat to kind of look and see like what the parents wanted, and I actually got to attend IEP meetings and talk to parents about what they hoped for in the transition for the student, and it was interesting to see like where they are now, but where they can go and where their parents really want them to go based on their interests and hobbies currently. Um, Another thing I thought was really awesome looking up resources for housing and living and also career. So there's a lot of living and housing that you can get for a lot cheaper because Social Security is only so much a month. So if a student is not able to afford apartments anywhere near here, and I'm sure most apartments, you wouldn't be able to pay the price for the apartment and the price of living on top of that. So that's really hard. So I think that there's a lot of great options in Columbus for students with disabilities to receive some sort of housing that they can afford, which is awesome. And then as far as careers, it really made me start thinking, like, what can I do in my classroom, even in a middle school classroom? Um, what can these students start doing? So folding and hanging clothes, sorting silverware, rolling silverware, cleaning the tables, like just little things or things that my students at 11 to 15 can start doing now to be better prepared for the future. And since doing this assessment, I've added a couple of sorting silverware tasks. We haven't managed to make it to rolling yet, the silverware, but we've been doing a lot more transitional tasks in the afternoon. So I think that that's a really great thing to add into my afternoon. I had a really hard time with my classroom management in the afternoons, just finding things to fill time after we had hit all of their IEP goals for the day. So being able to add a transition schedule to our schedule and work with each student individually on their interests and hobbies and what I think they would be good at is really a great thing in my classroom, and it's something that I want to continue to pursue, and I really think that this assignment for that. I was able to find student career interests, so that kind of just plays back into like I found little things that the students can be doing now based on their interests, strengths, and hobbies, which is really cool. Like one of my students really enjoys vacuuming. So practicing vacuuming with them, but not only just like, okay, we're going to vacuum the area. Now we're going to get specific. Well, we're going to vacuum in these straight lines. Just little things to build on stuff that they've already mastered to make them better at their future career. And then collaborating with the parents was really great as well, just to see what they wanted for their children, because a lot of my students are nonverbal. But I think that they get a better sense of what their students want as well, where I only see what's at school, but they are able to see some of their strengths, hobbies, and interests at home and what the parents know they're capable of as well. A lot of the time, since at schools we place high demands on students, we don't always see maybe their full potential, or we don't always give them the opportunity to do certain things on their own because we don't necessarily think that they can do that. So it's really good to get parent perspective on that. I kind of already talked about this, but some of my takeaways, I started doing the vocational tasks in my classroom. I really would like, at my school, we don't have any transition programs like where you go out in the community and do the transition piece, like where you're actually in a work setting. So we do have community-based instructions, but we do not make it out into the community to do those with our middle school kids yet. So I think just showing the students that there are careers that they are able to do, and working with the job planning centers and things like that to try to get these students the resources. I know that Donato's did a really cool thing where we were able to go in and have our students make their own pizzas, which was really cool. I don't know how our students would do like in a fast-paced environment where they can't get things wrong. But I think that it was a really cool thing if you were to hire them for a couple hours, just like in the slow periods of the day, just to try to work them into it and get them some practice doing that. And that's something you can practice at home and at school as well. Everybody loves pizza, so I think that's a really good option. And I feel like this project really helped me to try to start a transition program, not just doing little things with the students, like teaching them how to check out and things like that we're doing now, but continuing to work with them so that they're better prepared for their future and actually showing them real life situations, getting hands-on experience in these places. I didn't really know that there were so many assessments that you could do to find out what children with severe autism could do or wanted to do. With nonverbal students, it's really hard. So seeing that, here's some of the takeaways, here's some of the assessments you can try with these students to see what their interests and hobbies are without them actually having to verbalize it to you. However, my student was verbal, but I still took some of those back into consideration. And then, so I think that the impact this is having on my students and my classroom, I am better prepared to answer parent questions and supply them resources for a more successful transition out of high school. A lot of parents are like, well, I haven't really thought about it when you ask them about transition because I have most of the early transition programs on the IEP. And they're like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know what I think your student could do. But I'm able to say, oh, I think they'd be really successful at this company or at this company, and this company really likes to work with students. And if you want them to live independently, here's your options, and here's what they can afford. And I think that it's a really great opportunity to be able to supply those resources to their parents. And I think that's a really great thing for me to understand when teaching. I looked into the Board of Developmental Disabilities and the resources that they supply to students and their families. Students do not lose eligibility after they turn 22. They're eligible for life if they're diagnosed with a disability. So it's really cool that they would be able to get all of these different things that they need for a successful future just through the Board of Developmental Disabilities. So they give those students a lot of for the future. So just starting to prepare my middle schoolers now is really important. Still, some of my oldest students have 7 years until graduation, so just preparing them for some pre-vocational skills is important, but understanding that their skills and strengths and interests are going to change throughout those 7 years. And then this project also gave me some ideas for our community-based instructions, which is really cool. So thank you.